Hey y'all, it's Terry from Sisterhood of the Traveling Brush. Thanks for tuning in today. Make sure to subscribe and click the little bell so you'll be notified of the upcoming videos, and comment, and your comment may be featured in a future video. In today's video, we're going to be working on what they call porch leaners or signs, and I made this one with what do they call them, like fence pickets that I got at our local home improvement center. Lowe's is where I got them, and these were treated pickets, and they were like $1 something a piece or something like that. They were very inexpensive, and it is a quick and easy way to do the signs. But I want to warn you to make sure, because when lumber or wood products are treated, sometimes there can be chemicals that have leached into the wood and things like that. I don't do as many of these, but if I needed to do more and to sell inexpensively or to whip them out real quick, I wouldn't in a heartbeat resist doing this again. And I chose treated so that they would be good and not warp or whatever outside on somebody's porch. I now most of the time use a 2x12 board that's painted to protect it, and it's really thick and beefy, but you know, you're looking at $12 versus, you know, less than $3 to do that. So anything will work, but it either would need to be treated or painted all over, and if it is treated, make sure to be careful with it. I use Essential Stencils. I would love it if you would use my affiliate link if you do go there to check that out, and I get a little bit of a credit for that. And I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, just let me know. Enjoy the video. This is two treated, what are called pickets. I bought them at Lowe's for $1.68 a piece, and I think treated is good for being outside. You know, that means it's treated to be able to withstand bugs and the weather and all that, and I figure it's more important for you to see that than me today, so that's why I have it angled this way. We're going to use this welcome stencil that I got from Essential Stencil. I'll give you a link to that if you like it. And I'm using some Dixie Belle paint. I got out Golden Years, Rusty Nail, Sawmill Gravy, and Caviar. And have my trusty knife in case one of these doesn't open, because that's probably going to be the case. And I have some Paint Pixie brushes, an old sand and sponge, some water, and some of these cosmetic wedges that I got at the dollar store. So to begin with, what I decided to do was, and over this I had, this is two pickets. They're about probably 5 inches wide, and the working man put these wooden things behind it, 3 sets of them, to nail them together to get them as close together as they would go, to make it wide enough to hold this old sign. So these things also come in cedar and, you know, other woods that are safe for outside, but then they were $3 and something a piece, and I was too cheap to pay that. But the other controversy here is I normally don't like to mess with treated wood, because treated wood usually has some kind of chemicals in it, and I try to avoid chemicals, but again, I was cheap. So I'm not going to be playing around with this a lot, not going to be handling it all the time and all that. So if you choose to do treated, you could wear gloves during this part if you wanted to, or whatever it takes to, you know, make sure you're safe. I blew this off with the air hose to get the excess sawdust off of it. Let me see what brushes I have out. Okay, looks like I have 2 number 8s. This is probably a 4 or a 6. That's a 4, and then a French tip. And I really would have preferred to have one of the flat ones for stenciling later, but I didn't have one down here, and I'm still hobbling around on my hurt foot. I'm not putting a ton of this. I've got to be careful to not swap it around, and remember that I'm not in my work area. I actually am in the sunroom of my house, so I don't want paint on the floor. But I'm just wanting some of this. I'm going for like a little bit of a fall color look. So I just want a little bit of this around the edges because I probably won't go all the way to the edges with the rusty nail color. And this is called dog ears at the top, where it has this little bit of a shape to it. And I liked that shape. And normally this stencil is for... Oh, y'all, sorry, we get these recordings every day, all day. But anyway, I hope you can still hear me. The signs are for a 5-foot sign, and these boards are for 6-foot fencing. So there's two different things that I wanted it to be 6 foot for. For one, I didn't want to I wanted, to be able to share something with y'all where you could go and buy the materials at your regular home store without having to ask somebody to cut something for you, without you having to bring it home and cut it, to where you would just be able to use it and make it, make it work. And I decided I would probably tie a bow or something extra up at the top, something rustic looking because of the style of this board. Now my husband offered to, run these through the planer for me, or I could have done that myself. I've planed wood before, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted a bit of a rustic look. So that is what I'm going to be going for here. But anyway, so I decided to try to find a way to utilize that one. When I was looking at this stencil, I'm thinking, what am I going to do to use up that extra foot? They have a dog paw print that's really cute bonus, and they have this little wreath looking thing that's a cute bonus. And they can be used in place of the O if you want to. It looks in welcome, and that looks really cute. Or what I'm thinking I'm going to do is put that bow at the top to take up, 6 inches of that space. And then at the bottom, I'm going to put that little wreath and put in my house number. Then I'll act like I intended it like that the whole time to begin with. You know what I mean? So, getting this on really quick. I'm going to do this video in a couple of segments. For one, to tell you the truth, it's hurting like Hades to just be standing right now to do this. So in a minute I'll be letting this paint dry. But on the next part, and that's where I'm getting a little iffy with it here, I had thought I was going to mix it and do like a wash, because I thought it was going to be so hard to get good coverage on the rough texture of this wood that I thought, well, I'll do it like I'll water it down and do it more like a stain or a water glaze or something like that. But now that I'm looking at it, I'm getting really good coverage with the Dixie Belle paint, and the Paint Pixie brush is getting all down in those crevices. So, and now that I have this here in a solid rather than being watered down, I don't know if I wouldn't be smarter to go ahead and put this paint on solid as well. Or you could do it part, I'm just going to rinse this out a little bit and use the same brush. Or you could do it, half and half or whatever to fade toward those edges. You don't have to go with the solid color. I don't have that much of this left in there. Well, it's over half full, but it's time to make a decision. I'm gonna go full on paint. That's smearing a little bit. I forgot and was putting a little bit of yellow down the center. I even like that, y'all. I'm gonna dirty up my other brush anyways. Just set this aside for a second. I'm gonna dampen this, and I'm gonna put that golden years right all the way down the middle, so while it's still wet and I'm hurrying through this, I'll have a little bit of this damp in the middle to sort of blend with, and give it a little bit of interest. Just roll with the punches here. Go with the flow. Happy little accident. You know, every time I think, man, that's boring, ain't nobody gonna wanna watch. Just paint and paint and paint and paint, and then I think about Bob Ross. My daddy used to watch that, and it would be on, and I'm like, he's just not doing anything exciting. How can you just sit and watch that? How can you just sit and watch cooking on TV? And now there's whole networks just for that, and I love it too. Okay, so while that's wet, down this whole center where I can still, while it's wet, and I can blend a little. Give it that sunset blend. What was the name of that drink? Tequila sunset. Give it that tequila sunset look. Getting lots and lots of paint on my brush, and these Paint Pixie brushes hold lots and lots of paint anyway, so. So this is now somewhere in between being fall colored and muted and Tequila Sunrise, that's what it was called, and Tequila Sunrise. So. I'm almost trying to dry brush, like I'm going into this center with plenty of paint on my brush, and then as it gets used up, I'm lightly going over this golden years, so there's not such a stark contrast between where the rusty nail ends and the golden years begins. This is kind of southwestern. This could go for boho. This could just go for the fall look. I really wish I had some brown paint here at home, and I'm sure I do upstairs, but I still can't walk upstairs yet, so we're making do with what we have downstairs. But that's where you can choose, you know, the color of your front door, the color of your shutters, the color of your curtains, if they can be seen through your window, your favorite color, a contrasting color to your house. All of those things can be, or seasonal, like what was my original intention on this. And I always believe that everything happens for a reason here, so there's somebody, and it may be me, who's gonna like these colors and want this. On their porch. The problem that's going to arise with that now is the next technique, where you go through with your base color before you put on your top color to make your stencil not bleed through. It's going to have to be with just this plain color without the golden years under it. But I think that'll look real just fine. this is not solid. There's a little bit of the wood showing through here and there, just very faintly, lightly, but it is happening. Trying to get it to be a little less tequila sunrise and a little more rusty nail here. That's it for now. I'm going to let this completely dry, and then I will cut back in when I'm putting the stencil down. Okay, our paint's dry, and I've taken the packaging off the stencil. There's instructions there, and here it is. We're gonna kind of lay it out to see where it fits best. I have some painter's tape here. You could use masking tape or whatever you've got. And I see here, that's cute the way they did this. They give you this O to put in there if you want to put the O, or that's where you can put the dog print, or that's where you can put the little wreath, and then your ME. That's smart. They're smart people. We're gonna put this down here, and we're gonna use that O. We'll definitely save this for some other kind of sign for sure. So now we need to think about, and then my house number is, gosh, I was fixing to put the wrong thing, say 257. It is 294, so I'll put a little 294 in there later. But I want to save the same amount of space at the bottom. Just do it this way as I do the top. And then we're going to have, we want the dog ears to show and the bow, so I actually think this is pretty close to where we're going to want it to go. We're going to eyeball, but we don't want to do a ton of eyeballing because you don't want it all over the place. Opening this now because I may use it as a measuring device. And it will be smart at this point to tape, and this big tape, this was, my husband just brought this to me from down at his workshop. Something I learned from him as a carpenter is that, you know, 1/32 of an inch may not seem like much up here, but by the time you're off that much all the way to the other end of your house, 1/32 is a big deal. So always try to be as straight as I can with that kind of thing. And you can look here already and see it's leaning a little bit in that direction because the reveal is larger on this side than on that side. So if we didn't put it all together, we may not have noticed that until it's too late. I really wish I had the brown. That would be very pleasing to me right this moment. But I've also thought what I'm going to do is frame out these edges in the black, just caviar that we're using here in a minute. Got to make sure that nowhere do you go over your stencil hole a little bit or you won't get the paint there. I really think I want a little bit of space between that one and that one. So I think we have the make up for that difference. I'm looking at about the same amount of distance as the dog ears have at the top. Okay, now we want to make this straight. Look at our reveal on this side. That is about a 1/16. And over here, that's about a 1/4. I think that's it. So now we're going to tape it down. Let's just start in the middle because it'll give us some stability there. We don't want it moving around at all while we're working. And this is just tape that I'm already tearing. So this thing is rocking on the cleat that he put underneath. Just like when you're tightening screws, you don't tighten them all up on this side, then tighten them all up on that side because it's going to skew it a little bit. A little bit on this side, a little bit on that side, another one on this side, another one on that side, until you can have equal tension. Another thing to pay attention to, they're a good stencil company, so this is good, but I have purchased stencils on Amazon and things like that where taking the 12 by 12 or whatever sheet, this is a 9-inch, and doing all this careful measuring and marking dots and finding center and all of those things that are important for centering and things like that, and then not notice until after I put the paint on that the actual design was not centered inside the, for goodness sake, woman, inside the, it's too far anyway, inside the template, the paper thing. So that's something to always pay attention to. These are centered in here, so there's the same amount of distance to the right of this as to the left of this, so I can use the edges of this, I don't know what this is, this plastic, this mylar, this whatever, as a centering element. I don't know what word to use. We know that's straight, that looks straight, we're good on our edges. That's pretty intricate, so remove my measuring device. I'm going to put, you know, it would have been smart to put tape in all 4 corners, but I've already worked unsmart, so we're going to go top and bottom here. We'll go left and right, top and bottom. There we go. If I was only doing one letter, I probably honestly would have just held it there. Okay, now we're going to take our other little measuring device here, which is just a cosmetic sponge. And I'll do this bottom one first so you can see what I'm doing. I'm putting just a tad of the rusty nail in the lid here, and then I'm loading some on. It's not going to go clear, but then I'm offloading most of that back off. Hold this down. And I especially want to go around the details and the edges. With this, and what this does is if any paint is going to seep through there, this is not laying flat, but this is a textured surface, so That's just one of the chances that I'm taking here with using a textured surface. But if, and not even if, some paint is going to normally seep up under the edges of a stencil. That's life with a stencil. No matter how careful you are, it's going to happen. And you would do the same thing if you were wanting to use this tape to make a straight line on your wall there. But anyways, you go through and dab on some of your underneath color, which will never show or shouldn't show too much. And you'd use that first to go ahead and fill in those gaps and let it leak where it's going to leak, so that you're doing it with a color that doesn't show up. With a paintbrush, it would be definitely best done with a flat tip brush. Paint Pixie makes one, the 25C is a flat ended brush that's about the size of a quarter. They have a 5C, which is a 5-cent size, a 1C, which is a penny size. Those have a blunt flat tip, which is perfect for stenciling. But here we go. These were $1 for a whole big batch of them. Even with the tape that I have there, this is not taped down enough to keep this from raising a little bit. So I'm using my hand here to steady and stabilize it some while I do this. Blended color underneath, there's still a possibility that this could have shown some, but it's going to be so blended in there that, let's move the extra off of there now, that it really won't make a difference. But I think it's worth the extra minute or two that it takes. You don't want to do if you're using a paintbrush is brush back and forth. You're always wanting to dab. This stencil was, I don't know how much it was, $15 maybe, but it's reusable time and time again. You know, you can let your friends use it, you can use it in your business several times, you can use it to make signs for your friends and use it over and over, signs for every year and occasion. Or seasonal change for your yard. You can use it again when you change colors, so it's definitely much easier than printing this out and tracing it and then having to hold your hand still while you're trying to outline what you've traced on there and all that. I don't personally have the patience for that on a large scale. I've seen people cut up these little sponges so that you're only using a half of one or a third of a one each time. But I got a wad of them for $1, so I'm not feeling too bad for wasting or investing 7 or 8 cents here in what I'm doing to make my life easier. You could also do this part if you were, say, if you had a really intricate blend of colors underneath here that you really didn't want to mess up. You could do this with a clear coat. You could do this part with a clear top coat or Mod Podge or something like that, and you know, it still would seal it up the same way this is. Okay. Now we're going to put the caviar. There's quite a bit in the lid, so I'm going to stick with that. Normally you would want to let that bottom layer dry, but I have a ceiling fan going on above us. It's been a little while, so I think it's dry enough. We shall see. I'll hold this down, offload. It's better to do 2 or 3 thin coats than to go on with one heavy coat here. So I'm going to keep that in mind. No matter what you do, there sometimes can be a little bleeding. We will address that with the sander, with distressing the whole thing at the end. It's never or seldom a lost cause. Right there in the crease of where these 2 boards meet, or these 2 boards, if you can't see that part, there's a little bit of difficulty going on, but that's okay because I'm not wanting this to be solidly painted. We're still wanting this to look a little bit rustic and a little bit farmhouse and all the things. So it will naturally be darker in some area and lighter in others. And if it doesn't turn out that way, we're going to sand it to make it look like we did. Make it go that way the whole time. So much paint in that lid. I want to be very careful with that. I'm gonna have to pull a chair around. My back hurts too much in my legs. So. You do what you gotta do. Stab lightly and get it started. And I'm going around the edges first. Then I'll fill in toward the center. Careful too that if you have a rough surface like this, your tape can lift a little bit. So keep an eye on that as you go. You see that, how it's lighter around the edges, nothing in the center yet, and I'm just grabbing some of this where I offloaded at and going back in. Making sure that I'm not accidentally picking up some on the edge of my fingers and moving it around here. like to have a big old Terri fingerprint along the edge there. You could use this little sponge around the, I don't know why I just picked up so much of that, around the edges, and then go back with your brush in the center if you wanted. Try out different tools, whatever you want to do. This wood's very thirsty, and I knew that, and that's part of why I chose it. Was in ease of giving me the look that I'm going for in the end without a whole lot of extra effort. Trying to turn my sponge this way and that way to not leave a pattern of me going on it, you know, like a brush stroke would do either. Sticky as it starts to dry, and this, like I said, I am under a ceiling fan, and this is Dixie Belle paint. This is Dixie Belle Caviar that I'm using. It dries pretty fast too, so that's why it's wanting to stick a little bit and lift up the stencil a little more as I go. So that's as much as I'm going to put on there of that. So I'm going to continue the rest of the way through in that manner. Problem right here, because I did just what I told you not to do, or suggested you not do, is I went down with too much paint on my sponge already. I forgot to offload any. So the possibility of seepage underneath that is great. I can see under this edge that I am still having some seepage, and that's because this is not sealed tight, because this is a textured board. This is a rough cut board. If it was important to me that this look very smooth, I probably would stop right now and take a small brush and go back through and completely seal in these loose edges with a clear coat before I went back and finished it with this black. It's not important in this instance because that's the part of using this rough board, is to get that look, but I can see that as it's going over the grain, the over and under, that it's seeping under and going, you know, not going as evenly and down into the grooves as it does the high raised areas. compare the letters as I go up to make sure that it's relatively evenly saturated. I mean, it would be okay if this M was a little bit darker than one of them. That looks good too, and you handle a little bit of that with the sanding sponge later, but it's still something else to take notice of as you go. Now we will, while this is still a little bit damp, rip it off and find out the surprise of what we have underneath. A birthday present. Is it an engagement ring? Or is it some fingernail clippers? It can be good or it can be bad, but it's what we got. I like it. She likes it. Hey, Mikey. Okay, let me see if I have a chip brush in here real quick. These small ones, this will do. I'm gonna do the part that I told you about where we're gonna frame it out around the edges to tie this black in. I really like it. I think it's looking pretty dang good. It's gonna have to be smaller address numbers in there than I thought. Or you know what I might put in there? You put anything you want, but I could put an S for Stovall. Okay, here I just have a small chip brush, and I got the same caviar that I used on there, just on one side. We're gonna frame it out. This always makes things look finished. We could also, I wouldn't want to, you could, but I would not want to wax this because it's such a rough textured surface. The Dixie Belle paints that I used on here today don't have to have a top coat on them. So you could leave it like it is if you wanted it like that. You could add a matte top coat if you wanted it matte. You could add something like gator hide if you thought it was going to get rained on now and then. You know, not rained on, but if a little rain might get on your porch now and then or something like that, and you didn't want that to happen or to ruin your thing, you could put gator hide on it if you wanted to protect that surface. But because it would just eat up your waxing rag, you could use like a Paint Pixie waxing brush if you wanted, because you wanted to age it a little bit with, you know, some black wax around the edges. Or you could water down some of the caviar paint, or whatever color you use. Water down some of that paint and go over the edges like a wash. Or do like I'm doing here, and you can lightly go over the top just a little bit, and or around the edge just a little bit, and bring some of that dark in a little bit more on those edges. I want a little bit to come in around these dog ears up here to accentuate that, to where, you know, people look at it and go, oh look how clever, she made a sign out of a fence. You could use old fencing for this and leave it grayed and weathered. I'll post a completed picture at the end. I do not believe that I have any suitable ribbon. I do have a craft closet downstairs here, but I don't know that it's going to have any suitable ribbon, because I really want something like jute. Rope would look really nice. Tell you what would look good on some of the rustic ones would be something like barbed wire, but that's bad feng shui. You don't ever want anything pointy by your door. It's unwelcoming. Sorry, I don't know how long you weren't there because my battery's going dead. So see how I'm just brushing up just a little bit around the bottom and around these edges. I want to just show you one real quick before my battery goes dead. This is dry enough, I believe, to just scuff over. You can do to give your sign a little extra something is to highlight your letters, and I'm going to do that with Sawmill Gravy, which is a creamy off-white color. And I really should have a better liner brush or something, but I don't have one down here. I'm just going to do the best I can with this round brush. I can't even see what number it is, but I've had this one a long time. I got it from just dampening it in the water and trying to get it to a decent point down here on the end. I'm again just going to work out of the cap. This doesn't have to be perfect, but it will give it a little extra something. I know you can't see all of the letters. I'll just do a couple of what you can see. Choose a side. I'm going to choose the left hand side, and then we will just follow along the edge of the letter. See how that gives a little, and I'll sand that down a little bit too so that it's not quite so striking, but it'll really help my letters to come out off the sign. We're not going on outlining the whole thing. Again, just what's on the left. I'll start out a little more narrow and end a little more narrow. Get fatter through the center there, but I caused a big blob by going back over it. Area here, and you can go in this here. This is very narrow, so. It really just makes them pop. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you in the next video.